In this video, we're going to be looking at activity ratios, also known as efficiency ratios. These can be used to both measure profitability as well as liquidity. And liquidity meaning, how is the company doing with its cash? Does it have enough cash in order to pay its bills as those bills become due? With these activity ratios, we want to know how effectively or how efficiently is the company using its assets and its equity, or maybe specific assets, in order to earn sales revenue and net income. Because if a company is not using those assets or equity efficiently in order to produce revenues, then we want to sell those off. Anyone who's been to Trader Joe's and fallen in love with a specific product only to find that that product's not available anymore, we can, again, to been very disappointed, we can all assume that that product, Cowboy Caviar Salsa, I'm looking at you, was not producing enough revenues and therefore got discontinued. It's not just Trader Joe's. All companies should be analyzing which one of their products and services may not be producing enough sales or income in order to be continuing in part of operations. To get started, what we're going to do is pull down some financial statements. Let's look at the financial statements of Target and Walmart. So I'm going to type into Google SEC Edgar company search, and I like the legacy. To get Walmart, I'm going to type in their ticker, WMP. The filing type is 10-K. I want the most recent one, and I'm going to click on Interactive Data. And from here, I want to go to the Excel document so that I can calculate my numbers, have my numbers in Excel, be able to calculate my ratios in Excel, even though I'm also going to be writing them down on paper. When I open up my document, it comes onto this first page here. I'm going to scroll over to the income statement, and there's a few items that I want from my income statement. I want 1 year worth of data. I want my net sales, and I want my net income. I'm just going to take this whole thing, copy it over to a new book, and delete the data that I don't want. I'm also going to use this page to put in my balance sheet information, because what I'm going to be doing for these ratios is comparing some income statement items to some balance sheet items. Now I can use either the consolidated net income or the net income attributable to Walmart. Either one is fine. They both have pros and cons. I'm going to take the income attributable to Walmart. I forgot one item that I need. I also need my cost of goods sold. We'll see why in just a moment. Cost of goods sold, Walmart calls cost of sales. Okay, and then I need to go to the balance sheet. Put the date in here. Now to the balance sheet, and I want both years for the balance sheet. We'll see why shortly. I'm going to copy all the way down to total Walmart stockholders' equity. I'm going to paste that next to my income statement data. And I'm going to need my accounts receivable, my inventories. I'm not going to delete those. I want total assets, and I want total stockholders' equity attributable to Walmart. I'm going to insert a column here, and we are going to use, because we're comparing income statement data for the most recent year ended January 31st, 2024, to balance sheet data. Income statement covers a period of time. Balance sheet data is as of one point in time. I'm going to calculate average balances. Rename this tab Walmart. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for Costco, the competitor with whom we're going to compare Walmart's financial statements. So I no longer need Walmart's financial statements open, but I do need to pull down Costco's financial statements. Costco's ticker symbol is COST, filing type 10K, interactive data, and then I'm going to click on the link for view Excel document. Scroll over to the income statement. I want the income statement for the most recent year, and I want total revenue will be our net sales amount. I want cost of goods sold. We see that here as listed as merchandise costs, and we want the net income attributable to Costco. I'm going to copy this over to where I'm doing my work. Keep only those lines that I need: revenue, cost of goods sold, and income attributable to Costco. Next, I need my balance sheet data because I'm going to be comparing my some income statement data to some balance sheet data. Scroll over until I find the consolidated balance sheet here. I want both years. And again, I want to keep receivables, inventory, total assets, and total stockholders' equity. The reason is these are the variables I'm going to need to calculate my activity ratios. Again, I'm going to calculate the average balances. I'm going to compare these average balances to the income statement items that I've pulled up here. We're going to look at 5 different measures of activity or efficiency, and I'm going to be writing them out on paper. Feel free to do them in Excel if this comes quickly to you, but writing it out on paper helps me to slow down and put it into a format that hopefully is a little bit more understandable. So I'm going to put the data that we had for Walmart and Costco here onto my paper so I can show, as I'm writing out the calculations, where each number is coming from. We have accounts receivable for Walmart 8365, for Costco 2263, inventory 55,734, 17,279. Okay, so we can see so far Costco is quite a bit smaller. Accounts receivable about a quarter of Walmart's, inventory quite a bit smaller than Walmart's. Let's look at their total assets. 242,798, 66,580. Okay, so just a little bit more than Walmart's is a little bit more than 4 times, or a little less than 4 times than Costco. Total stockholders' equity, 80,277 and 22,850. We also need some income statement amounts. we have revenue, cost of goods sold, and net income. So we expect revenues to be higher because Walmart is so much bigger in terms of total assets and total stockholders' equity. But does it compensate for how much? Does the amount of income compensate for how much bigger the company is? We need some ratios to help us understand that. Okay, so initially I see that net income is about a little more than twice as much, even though assets were about 4 times as great. The first ratio that we're going to look at is asset turnover. When we say turnover, typically we're talking about how many times was something sold during the accounting period. Because that's what we're turning over, right? We're turning over stuff to get sales. So how many times if we can remember that turnover is referring to how many times something was sold, then the formula for asset turnover should be pretty straightforward. We're going to compare sales. When we use the term net sales, we just mean after sales, returns, allowance, and discounts. It's typically the number at the top of companies' income statements, divided by total assets. But remember, because sales is for a fiscal year in this case, could be for a quarter, we're going to look at the average total assets instead of just an ending balance. So let's look at these numbers this is our first formula that we are going to memorize. How well this tells us how well or how efficiently or effectively our assets generated sales revenue. That's what we want those assets to do, right? Okay, so let's look at this asset turnover let's plug in some numbers for Walmart and for Costco and see which company had more efficient. Walmart sales were 642, 637, and its average total assets were 247, 798. This gives Walmart an asset turnover of 2.59. And what's important is to be able to interpret these ratios. So this is not a dollar amount. Turnovers are always number of times. Typically, we're saying a number of times that an item was sold per year, per the accounting period. And we're looking at these ratios. So we're saying how many times greater were sales than our assets? Or if we were selling our total assets, how many times a year did those assets turn into revenues? 2.6 times. Looking at that number alone, it's not very meaningful, but when we can compare it to the amount for another company, we have a good basis for comparison. Costco had sales of 242, 290, based on assets of 66, 580. And this works out to be 3.64. So we can see their assets were sold 3.64 times, or sales revenue were 3.64 times higher than assets. So clearly Costco was doing a much better job generating sales dollars from its revenue.